Hardrick says, I realize that you two haven't talked in a long time, but I really hate to interrupt, but maybe it's time to move this conversation somewhere else. As patient as Araka has proven to be until now, I think she might actually start casting curses on us in our sleep if we delay her magical lesson any longer than we already have. Yeah, half an hour is a lot. Oh, there is no need, Sophie says. I've already gotten the main gist of what happened these past few weeks, so we can stop our discussion here for now. I'll go run some errands, then Darren and I can talk some more later, when you're all less busy. Would that be alright with you, Darren? Of course, Darren says. I'll talk to you later then. Bye, Sophie says. Oh, it was nice meeting you all. Please take good care of Darren from what you've been telling me, except that I expect that he'll need all the help he can get. Will do, Miss Sophie, Hardrick says. Will do. Goodbye, Sophie says. The transceiver finally closes the receiver, and she closes the receiver. Finally, Darren says, I thought you two would never shut up. I don't know why you're so complaining so much. Darren says as he puts his transceiver down, begins to gather his enchanted tools to put them in his backpack. If anything, you should be happy that I actually managed to put some of your worthless teachings to good use. I will stop complaining when you will start. Wait, what do you mean my teachings? Araka says. Are you talking about my aura lessons? Yeah, Darren says. I remembered what you told me yesterday about how one can boost the link between two auras by identifying key points in the flow that appear to be tied with knots, gently pulling on the invisible string until I can untie them. There are so many. These so-called knots sounded very familiar to the typical blockages that I would normally encounter when enchanting my transceiver to have a more powerful signal, except that I would always try to either find my way around them or eliminate them entirely, and I had never once thought that I had the option to simply untie them as if they were strings. As soon as I applied this process to my enchanting, everything became much easier. Well, enchant everything I have on me right now. Barry needs to be decked out in full enchanted gear. Flower, can you take me closer to Darren? Araka says, I want to have a better look at this transceiver of his. Sure, Flower says, and then she does as Araka asks. Once her amulet is closer to transceiver, Araka spends about 30 seconds observing it in silence. Just as we were about to ask what she was doing, Araka finally speaks in a very calm but obviously restrained tone of voice. Darren. Araka says, do you remember how on the very first day when we started your aura training, I told you that in order to contact the spirit from the magical plane that is linked to your aura, you would need to untangle the flow of your aura with your mind, then you would need to pull on the invisible strings to get the spirit's attention. Darren says. Correct me if I'm wrong, Araka says, but from what you told me in the past, your main problem was that you couldn't identify the string that was linking you to your spirit. You said that even after the goblin Keldrim finally got you to understand what I meant by untangling the flow of your aura, you still couldn't complete your task because you would have no way of knowing how to isolate strings well enough to be able to analyze them individually. Were these not your exact words? What? Entangling flows of auras, complete task because you would not be nowhere isolating the strings well enough to be able to analyze them individually. Were these not your exact words? This is what I said. Yes, Darren responds. Now, would you mind explaining to me why this device created by you is able to perform the exact task that you said was impossible for you to do? Araka says, sounding as if she was barely able to contain her anger. Of course, Darren says, you see, it's quite simple really. The transceiver is an object, which means that as an enchanter, I can use my enchanting tools on it to freely manipulate its aura in any way I see fit. Obviously, I've only learned this fact recently because I found out that objects have auras, because until a week ago, I was sure that I was just using my tools to cast enchantment spells on these items. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that I can't use my enchanting tools on myself because I'm not an object, or analyzing my own aura in order to find the invisible strings you're talking about still remains just as impossible to me as before. Then use your transceiver, you bumbling imbecile. Araka finally snaps. Do I really have to tell you everything? You want me to use my transceiver to contact a magical spirit on the other plane of existence? Darren asks confused. Yes, Araka says. Just what kind of moron are you? I can't believe that I wasted so many hours of my life trying to explain all these abstract concepts to you when you could have easily done what I asked you from the very beginning. If it wouldn't take me so long to conjure two physical hands from this amulet, I would have strangled you to death on the spot. You're not making any sense, Darren says. You told me that the only way to contact the spirit is through the link that exists between our two auras. How exactly is a transceiver supposed to help in this situation? You have to link it to your aura, genius, Araka says. First you link your transceiver to your aura, then you rotate the dial of yours until you find the correct frequency. Once you've identified it, you use your enchanting tools to untangle the flow of aura. I can't believe I need to actually tell you how to do your own job. This is funny because the author must have paid a lot of attention to how this whole script goes down. Quite interesting. Now I'm also thinking, like, do I need to do the perfect playthrough? Because if this really ends here, there's not much I needed to show. I think in book 3, the only thing that I've not done properly is, what's it called? The only thing I fucked up was, what's it called again? The Kilgrim. Kilgrim died, and the child's father died. And then when we cut the chains, that's about it. Everything else pretty much went okay. It wasn't like perfect, but it was okay. There's not much to do so far. So yeah, I think I might not do the perfect playthrough. We'll see. If people want it, I'll do it, but I'm personally not particularly interested in it. If you knew that it was possible to do all this with my transceiver, why didn't you just tell me? Why didn't you just tell me? Oh wait, what? Then why didn't you just tell me? Darren says. It would have been saved us both the trouble. How was I supposed to know that this is how your transceiver works, you buffoon? Araka says. But we told you once before that I couldn't have any less of an interest in tinkering with devices. Enchanting is one type of magic that I know almost nothing about because I never could be bothered to give a damn. There were no physical objects in the magical plane, so I had no idea that this branch of magic even existed until I was banished to this realm. You're the only one here who knew enchanting well enough to be able to figure it out. Okay, fine, Darren says. Next time I won't make the mistake to assume that you know what you're talking about. I've learned my lesson. Just shut up and get to work, Araka says. If you're lucky, you might be able to contact the spirit of yours before it's time for you to go to sleep. The one good thing about all this is that your transceiver will allow every one of us to talk to your spirit, not just you. So at least I'll be able to communicate with him directly. You better not mess this up. Yeah, Darren says, as he's now getting his enchanting tools out of his backpack again so he can work on his transceiver. The next hour or so, Darren focuses on linking his transceiver to his aura like he said he would, while Araka continues to teach me about the spells that she created while she's still in the magical plane. By the time she was finished explaining me about the most basic spells in her repertoire, I had already filled 10 pages of my notebook with all the obscure and technical details she had given me. In the meantime, each of the other members of our team had kept themselves busy with individual training of their own, aside from Melindra, who still hasn't returned since the morning. As Araka was about to end her introductory lesson, move on to somewhat more advanced notions, we heard Darren calling out to us. Guys, I think I did it, he says in a loud voice. Come over here for a second. They all gather slowly around Darren to see what he's talking about. Upon getting closer to him, I realize the transceiver does indeed feel different from before. It's hard to describe exactly what is different about it, but if I were to try put it into words, I'd say that the device seems to be perfectly in tune with Darren's aura, to the point where it reacts to his every movement or even a slight change in his emotions or tone of voice. When he sees that we were all close enough to hear him clearly, Darren takes the transceiver in his hand, then turns towards Araka. Transceiver is linked to my aura now, and I've taken care of all of the blockages then that would obstruct the magical communication channel to the magical plane. Darren says the only thing that remains to be seen is if the frequency that I set is the correct one. There would have been no blockages to take care of it if you hadn't chosen the correct frequency, so I doubt there's any way you could have gotten it wrong. Either way, we'll know for sure that it works as soon as we contact your spirit. Now hurry up and activate your transceiver. I'm curious to see which spirit you've been linked to and whether I know them or not. Would it be a bad thing if they knew you considering your history? Wait, shouldn't we at least decide what we are going to say to them beforehand? Yeah, considering our history. No, not necessarily, Araka says. Sure, I made a lot of enemies back in the day, but believe it or not, I also had a few allies since I was mainly targeting the gods and their followers from the magical plane. Some of the spirits who didn't like the gods' policy was rallying behind me, thinking that I was trying to start a revolution or something. You think any of them might be still alive, I ask? Anyone who was dumb enough to mistake my personal beef with the gods as some sort of crusade against evil tyrants were likely executed soon after my banishment as punishment for fighting together with me, Araka says. There were, however, plenty of spirits who chose to not take my side during this conflict. I see no reason why some of them would not still be around today. Well, then let's hope that the spirit I'm linked with is one of the neutral ones, because otherwise the whole thing may end up being a huge waste of our time, Darren says. I'm opening the channel now, get ready. He then taps the transceiver, begins to speak into it. Hello, Darren says. Is there anyone there? He waits for a few seconds, but he does not get an answer. Can you hear me? Darren asks again. Who are you? We hear a heavily distorted male voice from a powerful echo coming from the transceiver. What do you want? My name is Darren, says Darren. Says Darren. I'm contacting you from the earthen plane to ask if you can help me with the earthen plane. The spirit says, is this supposed to be some kind of joke? No, sir, Darren's